for us, and things have moved on quite substantially. So Ed's going to tell us a little bit about what they're doing, and I think you wanted questions at the end, Ed, or you?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. But do feel free to put questions in the chat as well as we go, and I can take them as we go along. So either is fine. Jill, hopefully my screen is sharing okay. If you're happy to let me know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, super. Well, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining. Thanks very much to Jill and Laura for having me back. I can't believe it's been a year since the last one. If some of you joined a session, around about a year ago, it's nice to see you again. If you haven't met me or us before, so I'm Ed. I'm one of the co-founders of Replacer. We actually started our company just over a couple of years ago, so not too far back. And we built a circular economy platform aiming to help businesses specifically, firstly, to save tens of millions of single-use and polluting items ever being used in the first place. Just to be clear, we haven't got to that yet, but that is our big, bold ambition. And we want to help them become more successful businesses as a result. And we're also looking to champion all of the sort of suppliers and the innovators out there, people who are supplying businesses with better circular options as well. You'll get a little bit of a peek at our platform later. In terms of today, I've got a few slides to go through. We're going to talk very quickly about some drivers of change that we're seeing in the business landscape, have a look at some real life examples of businesses that are embedding circularity and actually seeing commercial wins because of that. We'll look at just a handful of some of the suppliers that are driving further change. And as I say, just tell you briefly about our platform, how you can access it and get started as well. I'm going to try and cover all of that in about 15 to 20 minutes. Firstly, so that you're not listening to just me for too long, but also so that we've got a good amount of time at the end to come back and cover some of the questions that are in the chat, or we can unmute and have a discussion as well. So we will dive in. Now let's just quickly have a look at what's pushing circularity up the agenda. By the way, I hope you can see my slides moving on. If there's any issues, do please shout. So really what we're seeing is that two forces are kind of converging at the moment. One is that there are these on-the-ground commercial pressures that almost all businesses are facing. Now, at Replacer, we focus on the kind of hospitality and service sector, so everything from hotels, restaurants, stadiums, but all the way through to universities and other organizations like that. Of course, energy costs for many organizations are up to 70% higher than they were about 3 or 4 years ago, and that's before the Iran war. Staff costs are high. It's really hard out there. When it comes to on the revenue side of things, actually, if you don't have the requisite sustainability certifications and kind of evidence of your progress, it's harder actually to win commercial contracts. So there's that kind of on the ground pressure. And we all know about the trends with kind of changing customer and guest expectations as well. So that's on one hand, but at the same time, we've got some very real regulation that's no longer, kind of off in a distant future, but that's either landed already or it's coming very soon. Now, we won't go through all of these, and many of you will be aware of them, but much of it initially driven from the EU, whether it's around packaging regulation or around, of course, green claims and evidencing those. And that we're now seeing that really getting embedded, very kind of similar legislation in the UK. And of course, in Wales, there's, specifics around workplace recycling, single-use plastic products, etc. So that convergence of very real commercial pressures with legislation is really meaning that circularity is coming to the fore. And for us, rather than what tended to be the kind of prevailing narrative, which is that everything that's sustainability is just another cost, and therefore it gets deprioritized. We believe deeply that a circular economy actually solves lots of these problems. This is actually a quote from a report in 2024, really saying that actually, and kind of as Jill was setting the scene, to focus on net zero targets alone and renewable energy, we're actually missing this massive opportunity to realize really financial savings and efficiencies by addressing wasteful practices. So the cost of waste is going up, the cost of energy is going up. If we can conserve resources, then logically there are lots of business wins to be had. So we've been working really hard over the last couple of years to kind of bring lots of these stories to life, because you can't just have the theory unless there's the evidence, because then changes, they're just not going to get through. So what we thought we'd do today, and there are hundreds and thousands of case studies that we could refer to, and we've got lots of them on our platform. I just wanted to take 3 or 4 examples just to kind of get people thinking. Lots of these are taken from our sort of broader hospitality sector. And we've chosen these ones specifically because they're not just highlighting environmental gains, but actually how they're helping small to larger businesses on the ground. So here's the first one. So this is a pub in London that has switched to serving wine on tap via kegs, so moving from wine bottles to serving it on kegs. In this aspect, well, with this particular example, the circularity really comes from the fact that those kegs are always recycled and go back into the system. There is a better system, which is actually reusable kegs, and there's a separate kind of case study for that. But what we like about this one, again, is that there's just tangible business benefits. So what was the problem with wine bottles? Well, first of all, there's a huge amount of single-use wine bottle waste. Lots of businesses have that. You know, it's really, really prevalent. Glass is really energy intensive to recycle, and it actually costs a lot for businesses to kind of put that glass through their kind of waste streams. There's another problem, which is actually for customers. Every time they're trying a wine, or perhaps it's just ordering a house wine, quite often there's a bottle that's already been opened, and you end up wasting a proportion that basically just goes off. That's not good for business. So by moving to kegs, and it turns out that wine works really, really well with kegs, this business, well, what happened? First of all, it improved that customer experience. So as the owner says there at the top, somebody comes in to give somebody a taste, he can simply pull the tap. There's no wastage. The wine's been kept fresh, so it's a better experience from the off. But it also cuts down transport costs, because rather than lots of bottles, they're coming in these large kegs. It cut a huge amount of carbon, as you can see there, and actually fed into this pub's ranking as the best sustainable pub in the 2024 Great British Pub Awards. So there's a kind of brand value there. So overall, it is kind of like it's a no-brainer. And if you translate that across like lots of pubs and lots of businesses, it's actually a significant impact as well. Let's go on to another one. This is from a few years ago, but I really, really like it. So this was where Gymbox, you've probably heard of that chain of gyms, implemented initially in this first hotel in Farringdon, shower drain heat recovery. Some of you might be familiar with that. Essentially, that means that rather than water getting heated and all of it then is simply literally goes down the drain, the hot water, you know, that energy, nothing's kind of reused. Actually, this system, some of the hot water gets fed back in and either goes directly sort of up towards the shower to reheat the water, or it gets fed back into the water heating system to actually reduce the amount of heating required. In just over a year, it already paid for itself. That's pretty good going, considering that it's a fairly substantial investment. And now it's cost savings, right? So it's saving this one gym over £11,000 a year in reduced water heating costs. At any point in time, that's really, really helpful. And again, if you extrapolate that over dozens of gyms, that's a really, really good result for the business at group level. Again, a big saving in terms of, a massive saving actually in terms of carbon, and it actually reduces the load and the kind of energy needed on those water heaters, which means less maintenance and less energy used there. So it's a no-brainer. You get these tangible business benefits from what is really a circular solution at its core. A couple more of these. So at quite a lot of university campuses, we're now starting to see returnable cups or reusable food packaging, which is really, really good to see. And we all know how big the problem is nationally and internationally with single-use food packaging. At New College, Oxford, essentially they introduced very simply kind of sturdy, leak-proof reusables, so that rather than just dining at the college canteen and taking out these single-use containers, all of which ended up in the bin and landfill previously, nothing was getting recycled. They gave each student 2 free containers when they joined. After that, they would have to buy them at £10 each, so it was another revenue stream. And again, straight away, you're bringing cost savings. So £40,000 over 3 years is pretty good going just for this one initiative. And again, that's kind of eradicating tens of thousands of disposables. And again, there's something about the experience there, rather than something that's kind of soggy for the students that are probably getting kind of, greasy and there's spillages. It's actually a much better unit. So lots of business sense to getting that done. Let's just look at one more. This is a little bit different, and it's not in our sort of sector focus, but I really like it. It's more of an internal business model change with a digital focus. So the Fall essentially sell bridal wear and bridal accessories, and they realized that they were missing a massive opportunity, because when they sold a wedding dress, it was that material sold once, and they tended to never ever get a kind of repeat customer, and there was revenue left on the table. So what they decided to do was actually 2 things. One, they set up a kind of rental business, so it was peer-to-peer, bride to bride essentially. Sorry, that was a resale business, but they would take a cut of that, so there's revenue, and there's a kind of tech platform to enable that. But then they also had a rental side that they introduced for different kinds of accessories as well. So these are new revenue streams, and they've actually attracted a different group of customers. And again, before that, items are just sort of worn, used, and those customers are never coming back. And of course, there's sort of reduced use of virgin material. But above all, this is less about cost savings. This is about unlocking new revenue streams via the reuse market. So we really like that example. Now, there are many, many hundreds of these. Again, I chose them because at Replacer, what we've learned over the past few years is that when we're trying to get businesses to implement change and bring colleagues with them and get things signed off, focusing on the environmental savings alone, surprise, surprise, most things tend not to get through, and you'll be aware of this. And so we really recommend that if you're a supplier of a sustainable solution, or if you're a business trying to get things through, then it's absolutely crucial to focus on these projected commercial wins, because we're sure that's how we're going to get the change. A few more examples from Wales. I'll whiz through these, but Bluestone, who we work with really closely, are doing lots of interesting things. Recently, they've been procuring white goods, so things in their kitchen like appliances, based on repairability and how easy it is to source parts, which initially meant like a higher cost, an initial outlay, but over years they're making cost savings, which we find really, really interesting. They phased out single-use water bottles completely, giving guests refill stations and giving staff reusable bottles, which has been really successful. Park Plaza Cardiff are working with Grounds for Good, who many of you might have heard of, not just recycling their used coffee grounds, but also as a revenue stream, stocking drinks that are made from used coffee grounds. There are lots of other examples there, from Star Linen recycling used bedding, some interesting work around re-engineering furniture and interior spaces using recycled materials. Seen some great work there. And again, at sort of stadiums and across Cardiff, I know that there's been lots of progress in terms of reusables as well. So lots of great work. And I think it's telling those stories, again, is really going to support further change. Let's have a quick look at a few suppliers that are also driving this. And I think this is something that we're really conscious of. Sometimes it's the businesses themselves that are kind of pushing out that demand, but often there are people coming up with some brilliant solutions that we need to be telling everybody about, so that they can be piloted and then scaled. I'm going to literally flash up about 4 or 5. There are hundreds more on our platform and sort of more broadly available. This is just a snapshot. Here's one that we like. So this is Be Water. They're sort of international, but they've just arrived in the UK, starting in London. They're solving a big problem for hospitality businesses around, again, single-use water. Not always plastic, quite often it's glass. So they've actually built this very fancy, fully automated bottling plant in London. It's local in that it takes, the water supply, it filters it, it then delivers it in branded bottles to large hotels. That's used. It actually feels really, really premium. So there's, it's not an inferior experience. When all of those bottles have been used, they come along, they collect them, it goes back into the system, closes the loop, and they're used, hundreds of times. So again, it's just an example of an innovation which takes millions to get off the ground. So it requires investment. But that's now delivering value to businesses that can help them with their sustainability certifications. It can help them save money, and they can tell a powerful story to their customers as well. Oxley's, this is one that we like. This is more on the furniture side of things. So they work mainly with metal and aluminium furniture that's made from 100% recycled aluminium, but they also refurbish as well. What we really like, and again, this is for hotels, this is for other businesses, is that they have these kind of like lease and buyback schemes as well. So we like models where it's not just focused on ownership through to waste, but there's a chance actually for those just to be used for, for a number of years or a set amount of time. Sustainable wine solutions, wine again, clearly I'm a fan of wine. Really like this one. These are the actual reusable kegs. As far as we know, they're the only people in the UK doing this so far. So with this, these are kind of large kegs of wine on tap. There's essentially no waste, and they also have reusable, returnable bottles as well, which is pretty hard to find. Again, it's a big investment on their side to actually scale this, but it's happening, and it's really good for businesses, again, saving them money as well. Just a couple more. Amplify Goods is an example we really like in the B2B sort of hygiene space. So think, soaps and shampoos, some cleaning products. They've got this refill first model. So pretty much everything is based around refill. And they also have these sort of clever foaming sort of suds that they call them, that produce the equivalent of about 20 litres of liquid soap in really small size. So really, really cuts down on packaging. What's really nice as well is that they create this living wage work experience for people facing homelessness, or perhaps who have recently, come out of prison, something like that. They do lots of their packing as well, so a big social impact. And finally, last one, we see this a lot in hotels. It's really simple, actually, in many ways, but we really like it. You often see all those individual jam kind of plastic packets, or sometimes they're the slightly posher little jam jars. Huge amounts of waste when you think about all the hotels across the UK. These are dispenser solutions. So think about something like jam. What's clever here with their business model is that essentially the hotel buys the jam, and the dispensers get rented to them sort of free on loan, which means they don't own them. They get taken back at certain points and serviced. They just have to buy the jam. So it's a really easy decision for that business. Now at Replacer, we make it our business to kind of find all of the different suppliers of these solutions, vet them, and tell their stories. And so in just sort of 5 minutes or so before we kind of bring it back to discussion, I'd love to tell you a little bit about what we've been building. You may have seen it before, or if not, we'll tell you a bit about it. Now you can follow along with me live as I share my screen, or if you want to, you can log in. All you have to do is add your email, and you can kind of follow it along as I'm speaking, or you can do this at the end. It's completely up to you. There really is no catch. You might get the odd bit of news from us, but it's a simple free tool. I'm just going to share a different version of my screen, if you bear with me. And again, Jill, perhaps you could just let me know that that's showing up okay.
Yep, it's actually fine, Ed.
Brilliant, super. So now you're in Replacer. So about a year ago, we had a kind of first version of the platform. And we've come quite a long way since then, at least we think so. And I'll just run you through the key things that we're trying to do. So when you land in the platform, the first thing we're trying to do is inspire you with ideas. So much like we've been talking about in the last 10, 15 minutes, what are other people up to? So we'll be highlighting different solutions that we're seeing across the sector. And we kind of unashamedly take this commercial lens that I've been referring to today. So what are some actions that you could take that typically save cost? What are some things that actually might be a revenue stream? What might save staff time? Improve customer experience? You get the idea. So rather than just saying, this reduces plastic, which is really important, we're really focusing on what's going to help your business above all. And from here, you can go straight into a solution, or you could, if we're flagging different items here, let me just go back up. You could go and say, right, what are my options here? What could I do differently to kind of tackle this wasteful thing? And there's also lots of news and opinion. So that's the kind of discover area. Then what we've tried to do is kind of build this growing list of solutions and best practice so that you can go out there and explore things. And it might be that you've got something specific in mind. So it might be that you're tackling, I don't know, let's say water bottles. And if that's the case, you can go straight to that sort of problem item. And what we do is via our community, so we write this ourselves or with people that we know, we write out sort of what we think good looks like. What are your options? For different businesses, there's going to be different things. What's the gold standard? And typically that's, how do you kind of eliminate waste or at least reduce? And only kind of as a last resort, you're looking for kind of better substitution items. And then you can go into different actions or solutions that you can take. So rather than listing lots of different suppliers, we're explaining different things you can do. So let's take this example. Be Water, who I just mentioned, that's kind of a good one. So returning glass bottles to suppliers for reuse and refill. What does that mean for me, for my business, for my team? So you can read a little bit about that. But importantly, there's always a proof it works. So for any solution you go into, you can actually go and have a look at a real life case study from an organization that's implemented that change. And that's kind of right across all of the solutions. There's the how it works and the proof it works. So we've spent a lot of time building out all these case studies so that you can go in and kind of have that proof. Could be for a financial director or someone else that you're bringing along, that those things actually work as well. So you can browse by different solutions. And you can apply different lenses. So it might be that you're looking for things that save cost, and that you're focused on consumable items. A year ago, we only had consumable items. We're now starting to add energy and water solutions that are also kind of circular by nature, but consumables, remains our focus. And then you can also kind of narrow it down in terms of areas of your business as well. So once you've sort of done that, again, you can go in, read about those solutions, you get the idea. There's a couple more things to get across. So the first one is that we're also trying to help people build a business case by comparing their current sort of status quo with where they could get to. So we also enable businesses to build on consumables a kind of footprint of all of the different things that they use. So let's take an example here, such as, I don't know, milk containers, right? Let's imagine that I'm a hospitality business and I get through loads of these, and they might be plastic. You can actually go in here and you can add in sort of, here's one I made earlier, all of the different areas of the business that you use. So this would be taken from invoices, for example, how much they cost. You can choose the kind of variant, and that will help you build a picture of what you're using in terms of weight, but also in terms of cost, etc. So what I've done here is really build out an overall footprint in my business of how much what are the items that are actually the biggest weight of waste, what's costing me the most money, or I can just sort them alphabetically. And the reason that that's helpful is that we want people to be doing sort of return on investment calculations to get these business cases through. Again, here's one that I made earlier. What we want you to do is kind of take your before situation, ideally. What are you using at the moment? So this would be your kind of current use of, in this example, like water bottles, but it could be anything. It could be any item that's on the platform. And then you can model based on the solution, what's the after. So in this case, it's water dispensers, it's reusable bottles. You might want to add in different things like training or installation fees. We've kind of tried to leave no stone unturned. And then what that will spit out is an overall sort of return on investment picture. Now, this isn't a carbon calculator. There's lots of people doing that out there, and we don't want to be another one, and those are really important. What we're trying to do is give you a sense of material change. So in this case, with this solution, it's 9 tons of total weight change over 5 years, 2 tons of plastic. But you can see I've got an increase in plant-based plastic. So that will change depending on the solution. But crucially, you can see that you've got this break-even point, you've got an initial investment, and then you've got total cost savings. Now, these won't all save money, right? Some actions have a different type of return. They don't bring cost savings. So here's one that I've calculated won't bring me a cost saving. But in my planning area, if I actually look at it in unison with some that do save me money, and then kind of look at those together in their totality across 3 actions, I can see here that overall, I'm still saving money. I've still got a reasonably good break-even point, and I'm still saving lots of different materials. So again, we're trying to equip people with ways to get that business case done. Very last thing, then I'm going to bring it back. I'm conscious of time. We're also kind of vetting suppliers all the time of sustainable alternatives. Now, we're quite early on our journey here, and we've got a lot more to do, and we're kind of really going to power that forward this year. But for any supplier that's out there, what we'll do is we'll go and speak to them, we'll get to know them, we'll understand their certifications. And once they hit our bar, which is really focused not just on their solution, but their transparency and their evidence when it comes to the claims that they make, they'll list on the platform, and we allow people then to kind of go to their website, get in touch with them, request samples. Sometimes they'll sort of give offers to replace the users, etc. So that's where we're at today. We're growing quickly. We're in about 300 different businesses now, getting used every day. People are browsing different solutions. We would love to get your feedback. We want to keep improving the platform, and I guess our small ask for you would be to go in, have a look, and if you know businesses or if you know suppliers that you think might be interested in being on there, let us know, because this is a real kind of community effort and a tool for the whole sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. That was great. That was absolutely great. I can say it's
No worries.
really encouraging to see that 4 of the case studies that you put from Wales have actually worked with us.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed.
So that was great. I mean, I've got one. I mean, open it, if anybody wants to put their camera on, please do so, or just shout out a question. I've got one question in